Hi, you're welcome back to tip 11, and it's on money and banks. And we dealt with the concept of ownership in earlier videos, and you will understand how people like to own things and exchange things and all that sort of stuff. And there's a problem with exchanging ownership if you don't have some type of a value or some type of money, because you might have maybe a horse and you might want to buy a bag of sugar, and you can't really give the horse away for the bag of sugar, so you have a problem there. So that's the barter system, where you exchange one thing for the other. But from earliest times, some form of money was used, and rare precious metals like gold, silver, platinum were obvious things to use. But for many times, weapons and stone axes and all that were a type of currency. Now, precious metals are scarce because the way they're formed in dying stars makes them scarce. It only happens in some very rare circumstances in the cosmos, and the dust, the gold and the silver spread out, and a certain amount of it occurs on Earth, and so it's scarce. The other thing is, gold and silver looks nice, and it's nice and for jewellery and all that. It doesn't have that much practical use. Platinum has about the best use. So anyway, it wasn't too long then till the government or the king or the chieftain got involved, and they controlled the money supply in many cases and made the money using stamps and precious metals, and they would put their own head on it. It was a way of advertising. That's still the way in many countries. But essential then was that the correct amount of gold was in the coinage, and there was very severe penalties for messing about or filing off some of the gold in many societies. The ancient O'Reilly clan, the early O'Reilly clan, had a coinage based on bronze, I understand. So anything that's a bit scarce and can be limited, even though it's not valuable, if it can be limited. So what they do nowadays is they make it an offence to copy the money. So they limit the ability to make the money that way by putting fellows in jail if they set up a printing press. So any way at all to keep it scarce is the main thing. Now, so it must be scarce. That's the main thing to remember. Now, so it must require a wee bit of effort and a bit of pain and a bit of an odd sore back and working hard to get the money, to make money, and therefore people will then work hard to get that money. If the money is freely available and it's plentiful, well, then people won't make the same effort. It doesn't have the same value. So it must be linked to some underlying value. And if you watch any videos online or read any books online or anything like that, you'll see this underlying value is key. This is key to all value systems. There has to be an underlying value to it. Now, if we take an example of an island the size of, let's say, the County Louth, or even, let's say, the Isle of Man, and we'll say this island has fishery, it has forestry, it has agriculture, maybe a little bit of tin mining or something like that, and a nice happy population there, and they have all little bits of precious metals in their pockets and all that. So one guy gets the idea that he set up a bank. So he sets up a bank, and he has a big box there, and so what he does first of all is he puts 1,000 of his own capital in there, whatever it is, puts 1,000 in there, and the next thing then he's calls himself a bank and puts up a sign that he has a bank. And we'll say there's a fella called Jack, and he has no money, and he wants to buy something. He wants to buy whatever, maybe a horse, and so he has no money to buy the horse. If he could get the horse, he could have machinery, and he could make money doing contracting. So he goes over to another man. Now I just forget which I said here. We'll call that man Jack, the man that wants the horse, who wants the horse. We'll call him Jack. So we'll say then that Peter has a horse, and he's prepared to sell the horse to Jack. So Jack wants a horse, and Jack has no money, and Peter has a horse, and he wants 300 for the horse. So Peter wants 300 for the horse. Right. So along goes Jack to the bankman, and he says, I need 300 to buy the horse, and the bankman agrees. And the bankman can either give him 300 out of his 1,000, or he can tell him, you just write a wee note to Peter to give give you the horse, and tell him, give him that's, I'll honour that money. So it doesn't really matter whether it's cash or a note signed by cash. So signed for cash. So the bankman might put an initial on a bit of paper or whatever, just to convince Peter that everything's above board. So Paul goes over and he buys the horse, and he gives Peter a cheque, a piece of paper with his name, pay 300, or he gives him 300 in silver or gold that he got from the bankman. Okay, so the next thing then happens is that Peter comes to the bankman and he lodges either the cheque or he lodges the silver into an account. So just if we imagine now, what happens is, in an idealized system, the bankman puts 1,000 of his own into the box. The Jack fella, the lad that has no money, he comes in, he borrows 300, he gives it to Peter, and Peter lodges it back in the bank. So the way it is, 1,000 less 300 leaves the bankman with 700. Peter that sells the horse gets the 300 and puts back in the 300. So the bankman has 1,000 again. He has 1,000 again, you see. So the money is in a different ownership, but it's all in the one bank, in an idealized model. Now, so the next thing then that happens is that over a period, some people with bits of money will put it in and invest it in the bank. They'll give it to the bankman, and he'll give them a wee note, put an entry in the book and a deposit book. So they have deposits in there. So they can put in the deposits, and he'll have to give them a little interest. So if he's giving them a little interest, he's going to have to loan it out to make a little interest as well, because that's his business. It's the difference between the interest he gets on money he lends out and money that he takes in that makes his little profit. Now, another way that locals might want to do is buy shares in the bank. Now, the difference is the deposits have to be repaid by the bank. The bank owe you the deposits. But if you take out shares in the bank, they don't have to pay you. They can pay you. You own it as a part of the bank. So it's the same as all other businesses. So it doesn't matter. We'll say he gets a certain amount of deposits and a certain amount of shares. He then has a good lot of money coming in. And he can loan out money. A lot of the money he lends out is soundly based. It's a good horse. It's a good piece of land. It's something worth value. And therefore, even though he may let his £1,000 go down maybe to 100, he's not 100 less off. He has good value for that. He can, if these people went into liquidation, he can take their money or their land or their property or whatever, and he can, or the horse, and he can sell it and get his money back. So essentially, he doesn't have to keep deposits equal to what he lends out. He can lend out far more than he has on deposit, and this is called the fractional reserve, and it's usually set by government, and it's good housekeeping anyway. Now, so it's grand. He can let out a lot more in money because he has Peter's 300. He's his own 1,000, and then the first fella, Jack, is paying him in a bit of interest every week. So eventually he's getting to a position where Jack pays him back the 300, where Peter has lodged the 300. He now has 1,000. So that brings it up to 1,000, and then he ends up with his own 1,000, Jack's 300, and Peter's 300, and a bit of interest that Jack has been paying him. So he's making a bit of money, and so he also may attract a few shares. So he can then loan out money, but the fractional reserve is normally set at 90%, 90%. So that means that he can let out 9 for every 10 he has on deposit. He can nearly let it all go, but he has to keep a little bit. And over the years, it's been discovered that the balance or the equilibrium for safe, good, prudent banking is 90%. So keep a little, keep a tenth, and let the rest out. And I'm not exactly sure how it works with shares. They have to still keep some of their share capital, I think, but it doesn't really matter. Just the main thing is to get the principle of the fractional reserve on deposits to get it understood. So one of the things that could happen there is, if some people got the idea that this fella's not keeping the money in the bank, they might come in looking for the money back, and he can't give it what he doesn't have. It's all let out. These people are paying him back over years. So for that reason, he'd have to convince them that everything's all right. But in reality, there'd be another bank somewhere else, and he'd borrow off that bank, and that's called interbank lending. Okay, so now that's all right. Now the next thing I want to move on to, I have 10 minutes, just a little bit more. Right, big institutions like banks, like governments, like Tato Crisps, like Diageo that owns Guinnesses, Pernod Ricard. I just can't think of other ones. It used to be Carol cigarettes, but they're kind of not in vogue at the minute. But big companies do what's known as issue a bond. They issue a bond, and the bond is never below 500 million in the currency, let it be euros or sterling or dollars or whatever. So a bond would be something like a piece of paper like this, usually embossed, and there'd be a line down one side of it here, and there'd be 10. So it's 500 million there, like that, and there's coupons down along the side, and it's usually 10%. And each year, the issuer takes off the coupon, right, and pays 10% interest. So we put 10% there, 10% interest, right? I think that's there. I think that's the right way up, but you understand anyway. So over the 10 years of the bond, the 10% interest a year brings it up to double. So the 500 million euro bond would become a billion. They'd pay $1 billion for 500, but they have 10 years of that money, and they'd probably be doing some upgrade of their premises, some big revamp, some major well thought out business plan. And if it's government, and government is mostly run on these, it's embossed paper in all cases. It's nice fancy paper with a little bit of gold and things through it, but the edge is gilt edge, and that's generally government money. So government bonds are called gilts, generally speaking, and governments can tax their people, and so governments are the premium safe home. So remember, a lot of people wonder where they're going to get the next euro, but for the people I'm talking about, for these big managers and all that, the fund managers, the pension fund managers and all that stuff, they are looking for a good safe home to put their capital, to put their money, and they want to get a best rate of interest, and they want security. Now, it's generally speaking, bonds do not bounce. They don't usually bounce. They usually pay up, and they usually do it. They're usually good companies. But you can have a subprime type of bond, but generally speaking, they're all paid off. You don't even know it. But the main thing about government bonds is that that's how most governments are funded. They buy these bonds and they pay them back this way, using them in $500 million a go. So just get that little things understood, and we're now at 13 minutes, and I'll leave it at that then, and we'll come back again with video 11A, where we deal with more of the way the banking system works. So thank you very much.